Hey there, hi there, ho there.
There.
You're as welcome as can be. Welcome back to another episode of Comic Book 101 TV. I, of course, am your wonderful, beautiful, prettiful host, the one and only Princess of Weird, Josh Johnson. And once again, as always, to the left.
Cosplaying Tampa Bay, Michael Stanley. Sorry, I'm just pulling up the show so we can chat with everyone real quick.
We are all getting excited indeed for this week's issue. We are now up to issue number 14, Michael.
14, it seems like just yesterday was number 1.
Yeah, and here we are. We've had some guests, we've had interviews, we've had a lot of stuff go on this show already in the short period of time that we've been involved with doing this, including this being our first ever 2-part episode. We've taken a couple weeks off of it because we had a special guest with Mr. Mark Muncy here over the past few weeks from Erie, Florida. But this week, we're going to dive right back into it. The History of Pro Wrestling Part 2 will be our character spotlight a little bit later on. I have a little bit of a refresher course for my Comics of the Week this week because I was planning for such. But nevertheless, we need to thank our good friends over at Yancy Street Comics. They help us each and every show grab our comic books and stuff like that. Well, they charge us for our books, but nevertheless, we make sure that we get them each and every week when we can. They have been, sliding Michael comics out the back door when he hands them the money and stuff. It's, yesterday's transactions that went on all day long is pretty much how Michael's been buying comic books lately.
Don't tell anybody.
Out of some shady dealings and backdoor dealings and stuff like that. But nevertheless, he's still able to get his comics for the week. I've gotten my comics for the week, and it was thanks in part to Yancy Street Comics. Be sure to check out their eBay store as well, because that will be how you can pick up some of these brand new books. I saw that they were doing on their Facebook page autographed comic books starting as low as a
auction
style.
I put my bid in there, and one of the ones I wanted, I got outbid already.
I am so sorry.
But there's a Ren and Stimpy comic I'm after in there.
Yeah, there's a couple good ones.
I want that one. There's a Deadpool, a Superman.
saw a Superman.
The Superman one that they have is actually one John got.
Yes.
He got a copy of that one when me and him went there.
I believe it's issue 1000.
I think so. I don't remember which one it was.
But nevertheless, they have that comic book available on their website. It's a silent, sort of silent auction-y thing. You go on there, you offer how much you're going to pay, and come Friday, we'll determine who has the highest bid and who's going to walk away with these comics.
I'm going to keep an eye on it right before Friday and outbid everybody by $1 at the last minute, like I do on eBay.
He's going to try to snipe it, is what he's going to do.
But also, I want to mention, again, Moshi last week was watching. He works at Coliseum of Comics, and they still have their specials going on, the 3 for $30 for trade paperbacks. The personal shopper where you can Skype in, whatever, FaceTime, and they'll walk around and actually get comics for you, whatever you need, toys that they have.
We might have to be sending them a message to see if we can't find some of the figures I'm still on the hunt for, because as we know, each and every week I'm collecting brand new action figures.
Probably have
they might have something I'm looking for. So
and the sale they were doing,
the
10 new comics for $39.99 with free shipping. That's a good deal right there, considering a lot of comics start off $5 to $8 brand new.
And just to kind of, since this is our housekeeping segment, as we've all kind of been hearing about DC Comics and their 2 new distributors and stuff like that, we want to let you know on here, on this show, Comic Book 101, like a few of the other comic book stores that are out there, we're not going to cover any new comic books from DC Comics that come out in the next few weeks until Diamond Distributions, the main distributor of Marvel, DC, Vertigo, Valiant, all these great comic companies, once they start back up is when we will officially start back up and showing you all those new books. We have the previews magazines that we're still waiting for some of the books and toys and stuff to still finally come out. So that's what we're waiting for on this show. We understand that DC Comics is doing their own thing. We respect them for it. Unfortunately, for our particular show, we're not going to cover any of that for a little while. But one thing that we did want to cover is if you out there, whoever you are, all of our loyal viewers.
Right, not you, the person behind you.
If you would like to be a sponsor of this show and you would like to get your name, your establishment mentioned each and every week on Comic Book 101 TV, all you got to do is send us a message at info at comicbook101tv.com. Next week we'll get the little lower third. I think he already has it.
Well, that's quick.
We have hello at comicbook101.tv.com as well. If you just want to send us a message, ask us how we're doing, have any questions, comments, or concerns, please use hello at comicbook101tv.com.
If you want to say that I'm prettier than him, please send an email.
I'm sorry.
I don't mind.
I'm sorry. You officially made a post about how ugly you are. I win this argument. Done with.
I forgot about that post.
Yeah. So this is where I get my victory over that. But nevertheless, info at comicbook101tv.com if you would like to sponsor our show. Now, with that all said and done, all of our housekeeping tidiness is all in order. I believe it's time to head over to our new comics of the week.
Comics, yes, comics. We got new comics.
Every week, me and Michael Stanley of Cosplay in Tampa Bay are constantly getting new comic books. In this instance, as we've just stated, there are a lot older of issues, but there's still some great issues nevertheless. This particular week, since we knew we were going to get back into the history of Professional Wrestling 101 in comic books, and we're just talking about major wrestling companies, major wrestlers, like actual living, breathing human beings like myself who work in the world of professional wrestling and have a comic book made about them. So the first thing I wound up going and read is, we talked about it last time we were on here. It was by Valiant Comics. They made WWF BattleMania, and I read issues number 1 and 2. There you see them. Issue number 1 had the Ultimate Warrior on the cover. Issue number 2 had the Bushwhackers on the cover, and this was a great story for the, like, there was 3 or 4 different stories throughout the 2 books that I read, because I couldn't read 3, 4, and 5 because they weren't on the site that I was reading. But each of the stories involved the wrestlers behind the scenes. So one of them had Ted DiBiase fighting Virgil, because Virgil used the $1 Million Man's 24-karat gold weight equipment without permission. So what was the $1 Million Man to do? Beat the crap out of him all through his mansion. The Bushwhackers had a fight with the Nasty Boys in the middle of an up-class restaurant.
The Nasty Boys really are nasty.
And yeah, very unique comic book. One of the first times WWF ever had a comic book, and that was all the way in 1992 during the great New Generation era of professional wrestling, long before Austin 316 and DX and anything like that. We still had the Warrior. And one of the great things about this book was there was an issue that involved the Big Boss Man breaking into a funeral parlor to get into a fight with the Undertaker.
Pretty sure that actually happened.
In 1992. Then you fast forward to the year 2000 and something, and he's bringing Blues Brothers police car to take the Big Show's father's casket and trek it down the road. God, I love wrestling for all these wonderful reasons.
So it's been sitting there, I don't know what we should do this week. Oh, go back to the comics 10 years ago. Well, that's a good idea.
Believe it or not, I don't think anybody in WWE actually read this comic book, or any of these comic books for that matter, because if they did, somebody may have gotten a brilliant storyline somewhere out of there. I mean, I'm just saying. But that was the first thing I read this week, the very first time WWF was ever in a comic book. I didn't read the WCW Marvel comics, although I have in the past. They are pretty decent. There are a few other ones that have come out that I just really wasn't in the mood to kind of read, because as you will see a little bit later on, it's going to be a lot of WWF heading into the second half of this show. So, Michael, what was the first thing you picked up this week?
So, Star Wars Age of the Republic, Darth Maul number 3, Rise of the Sith. Darth Maul is one of my favorite characters right off the back. A living weapon, rage, and bloodthirst. Darth Maul has stayed in the shadows of Coruscant, waiting for his chance to strike against the Jedi. Coruscant.
You mean Coruscant?
I can't talk today. I need another drink.
I mean, we
give me a second. Let me have a
show. I think we both need one.
There's no alcohol in here, I promise. I didn't have time.
I don't drink anymore,
I was making a TikTok about the show before I could make my drink, so it's just soda. He's waiting to strike against the Jedi Order. However, since tasting his first blood, the Sith Lord struggles to contain his desire for destruction and questions the wishes of his methodological plotting master. Could Maul have another plan in life, or was he always fated to follow the dark road? So, and guess who stars in this book?
I believe a good friend of mine named Darth Sidious.
Yeah.
Good old Papa Palpatine.
So it was a great book. The artwork's
the good thing
awesome
to know
in it.
is that it's actual Papa Palpatine and not his clone from Revenge.
Yes.
Or Return, or whatever the heck that last one was.
know.
Rise of Skywalker. Yeah, I didn't mind it. Because we've talked about it on Nerd Talk. I enjoyed it.
I'm not gonna lie, I enjoyed it.
But there's certain parts of it that, like anything in Star Wars, it takes you a little while to meld over and accept. And since you're bringing it up, I'm going to bring up this bad boy. This is one of my favorite Star Wars comics, beyond the Boba Fett one we've talked about here the past few weeks. It's called Star Wars Visionaries. This came out around the same time as Revenge of the Sith and expanded on some of those stories, including the death of Darth Maul.
By Obi-Wan.
No.
Yes.
By Uncle Ben.
No.
Yes.
The Rice Maker did not do this.
Yes, he did.
Oh, wait, no, it was Spider-Man's uncle. That's who killed him.
As you can see, there he is. Right there, we might have to go to the...
Is it actually Darth Maul?
That is Darth Maul getting shot in the head by Uncle Owen. Let's pull it in a little bit more. There we go. There you see the kablam, and Uncle Owen holding the shotgun. Obi-Wan is in the middle of a fight with Darth Maul, but to protect Luke Skywalker and his wife, Uncle Owen decides, well, let's just blow his head off. So there you go. No longer canon. Not part of Star Wars canon anymore.
But they redid it, and Obi-Wan kills him instead.
Who knows anymore? For all we know, it's going to be Ducky Momo killing Darth Maul in a few episodes.
Roger the Duck comes in there.
So nevertheless, he said Howard, not
Howard. I am out of it. Roger Rabbit and Howard the Duck.
There we go. I think you need to take a little bit of a breather, take a seat. I will take the hot tag here, because the next thing I would read is the next time WWF Comics would ever come out. I'm not talking about the Ultimate Warrior comic book, and I'm not talking about that Crazor comic book either.
Where's my beer?
That never came out. Nope. I'm talking about Chaos Comics when they released this little ditty about Stone Cold Steve Austin. Yes. All 4 issues I happened to read. Really interesting story, because if you've ever wanted to see Stone Cold Steve Austin as a pseudo sheriff beating up a bunch of over-religious nut jobs, a biker gang, the corporation, and a whole bunch of other people, once again, Chaos Comics kills it with the artwork.
What?
Well, because once again, Austin 316 says I just whipped your ass. So there's a whole thing I can get into it. Like, really unique comic book, because like I expected some of this stuff out of the Insane Clown Posse comic book from Chaos Comics, maybe even the Undertaker one to a degree, but some of the stuff that came out of the Stone Cold one was just like, it's amazingly awesome kind of thing. And not to mention, in the WWF BattleMania one, there are instances where the wrestlers will hit their finishing move. So Mr. Perfect hits a perfect plex. When they illustrate it, it's not the perfect plex. It's literally like he just threw the guy, and they call it the perfect plex. In the Stone Cold Steve Austin Chaos Comics that came out in 1999, he is literally serving up stunners to people and breaking up jaws. Like, literally, you just see him going down, full leg snow.
That's all he does now.
Yeah, and it's great.
Don't trust a rattlesnake.
Chaos Comics knocked it out of the box with this one, and yeah, so way to go, Chaos. You're doing a great job. You're definitely not doing a certain person's work, but you're definitely doing Austin's work. What takes us to your next comic this week?
So it's by Kaboom Comics. Again, a few of these comics I got as a gift, so I'm like, might as well read them. And it's the Baker Street Peculiars. Peculiars. I can't speak.
You can.
It's going to be a rough night if I can't speak, apparently.
We've only got 42 minutes left in this show.
I've never heard of this comic, so it's quite interesting. It's the final issue. They have to work together and be as clever as they have ever been to stop Chipper Kipper and his army of golems once and for all. And the artwork in this is actually quite interesting. We're going to see if I can open it up there, and maybe Rob might be nice. And so the artwork is really good. I enjoyed the comic. I definitely want to, when the shops open back up, pick up the first 3 of these.
Yes, because this is actually issue number 4 that you picked up.
So it was a little confusing in the beginning. I'm like, I don't know what's going on, but it was a good comic.
So is this one of your favorite comics? It doesn't matter if it's one of your favorite comic books, because the next comic book should be your favorite comic book. Once again, by Chaos Comics, all the way in the year 2000. Know your role, Michael, and shut your mouth, because it's The Rock's comic book. That's right. We talked about it on part one. This was another unique comic by Chaos Comics, because they did a whole series of books around the WWF based off of individual wrestlers as opposed to the company as a whole, like we'll see a little bit later on in the BattleMania comics. But this one involved The Rock getting into a fight with an underground fight club and its promoter.
And that's The Rock when he still had hair.
Yeah, and the woman who proclaims that she has The Rock for the fight, but it's a generic knockoff, and it's not, the bottom line.
Like they did with Nash and Hall, the knockoffs.
Yeah, kind of something like that.
The Undertaker
but
knockoff.
The Rock actually shows up and beats the crap out of everyone and literally serves a people's elbow in the middle of the comic book on somebody who, mind you, the guy he gives the people's elbow to can punch a hole right through your chest.
Of course.
But somehow the people's elbow is going to stop
everything.
the guy.
It's like Hogan's leg drop. Can stop anybody.
Yeah, so he's just, delivering people's elbows on people. So I think it was a great, interesting read. I don't know if I'd ever recommend this one to anybody, but if you're into WWF, more specifically, if you're into The Rock and you want to see the most outlandish thing that The Rock's ever put his name on beyond the Scorpion King action figure line, this comic book would happen to be it.
We don't talk about Scorpion King.
No, the Scorpion King movie was amazing. That action figure line, whole nother story. Jakks Pacific, the company that was making the WWF action figures at the time, literally just went, all right, we'll dress up this Rock figure like he is in the movie and call it a weekend. God. So, Michael, what was your next comic book for the week?
Everybody knows I love the whole Arrowverse, Arrow, Flash, that whole series of shows. They did a comic for that to combine what happens between Season 2 and Season 3 of the show. It's Arrow Season 2.5, they called it. And it follows Oliver Queen's story as he battles a Church of Blood with the fate of Starling City hanging in balance, featuring all the cast from it, his greatest allies and enemies, including Canary, Deathstroke, and your favorite, probably, Suicide Squad.
I'm all right on the Suicide Squad. Believe it or not, unless Harley Quinn's involved, I'm not really caring about the Suicide Squad. But that goes.
She was hinted in the show during that episode when they showed the Suicide Squad. You saw her cage, her door that said it, and you heard her giggle.
Yeah, and I believe they showed her kind of turn around.
Yeah, the back of her with her ponytails. So it was a nice little call for her on the show. But this,
because then they made into the Suicide Squad movie. Therefore, they weren't able to use her in the actual TV show because the way their TV rights, movie rights, and comic book and all that works at Warner Brothers and stuff like that. But that's neither here nor there.
But it's a great way to tie the seasons together.
Yes, and we had talked about this before in one of our past issues, which is available in our archives. You can go and check out on WeBeam TV or, of course, comicbook101tv.com, and you can check out all those past issues, especially the ones where we talk about Arrow and how Diggle is not the Green Lantern.
Diggle is Green Lantern.
I'm sorry, no, that little teaser thing
was Green Lantern.
Did he put on a ring?
You don't, because you know why? They're hinting for him to go on Supergirl. Because now, since everything's on one planet now, he mentions he moves to a city where Supergirl is. If you want to
tell me he shows up as Green Lantern in that in the full suit, I will watch it.
He better.
If not,
or he could show up on the HBO version.
Yes, that's very well true.
Because they still never said who the cast is going to be. They just said it's going to be a Green Lantern show.
If there actually is going to be a Green Lantern show, because we all know with everything going on right now, there are things getting canceled left and right, including Michael's dates with his left and his right. But unfortunately, we're going to move on.
At least I get a date. Yeah, they may cancel right away, but that's not the point.
And they may be your left and your right, but that's neither here nor there.
I'm going home.
Well, I mean, we still got a little bit of show for you to stumble through.
Stumble's the word right now. I promise I am sober.
So the next book I would read is the last book I could by Chaos Comics in the short amount of time I had in between, which was The Undertaker's Halloween special. There were two different covers. The photo cover that was taken during his Ministry of Darkness days, and then, of course, that animated cover, which features my good buddy Sam Hain. Do you know who Sam Hain is?
I know who he is, but I don't know who he is in a comic.
It is the same person you would think he is in all of literature. Sam Hain is the one and only second-tier level god of Halloween, because I am the first one. You've heard it on this show first. God, princess, I'm all these things because I'm insane. But nevertheless, a really interesting comic book because what happens in this one is the Undertaker winds up every Halloween basically going to have to fight the Lord of Halloween, Sam Hain, every year.
Not AJ Styles?
It's not AJ Styles. It's not in a Boneyard match. Kane isn't even there for some reason. But the brood of Gangrel, Edge, and Christian.
Oh, yeah, because they were part of that whole
Ministry they were part of the Ministry of Darkness, but they weren't at this time when this book was actually released.
The Hog guy, was it in there?
Oh, dude.
Whatever his name was?
His original name was Phineas I. Godwin.
Yeah.
Then he turned into Midian. Then he turned into Naked Midian. And then we don't talk about that anymore. But nevertheless, so while the Undertaker is fighting the undead Lord of Halloween for some weird reason that's never fully explained in the book, because it is kind of explained, in this particular fight, the Lord of the Underground, Sam Hain, and Halloween actually has the souls of the Undertaker's dead parents. In order to liberate them, he has to fight them, take them out, everything like that. And while all this is going on, Michael, guess what Paul Bearer is doing?
Digging a grave.
No, he's
worshipping somebody.
No, even worse. For some reason,
eating Cheetos.
We've talked about this a little bit on this show. For some reason, in Chaos Comics and Boom Studio Comics, anytime Paul Bearer has been in comic book form, he's always larger than he was in actual real life and eviler than he was in real life, because in this one he's abducting children to make another Undertaker and Kane.
That's creepy, right there.
If him having sex against a woman's will and all this other weird stuff wasn't weird enough, there's this. Either can I. But guess what? How they get the children have their day saved before they end up in an incinerator. Kane just shows up, opens the casket, lets the kids out, and that's it.
The one that burned his sister.
No. Kane didn't burn his sister. Kane may or may not have made love to
Katie Vick.
Yes, to Katie Vick, and that's as far as we'll go with it. And go look up that promo if you want to see something really, 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 really horrible, because it is by far the worst thing I've ever seen in professional wrestling.
No, the promo that cuts even worse, I have to say, was Mark Henry and Mae Young giving birth to a
this is an
80-year-old lady.
We can have that conversation on a whole nother day. We don't have that much time for what was worse, the hand or Katie Vick. But nevertheless, hey, at least the hands had us given some payoffs comedically down the line. Because we did have a family reunion before Mae Young passed away of Mark May and the Giant Hand, which was entertaining for Raw's 1000th episode.
Thank God Katie Vick one just died away.
Yeah, so nevertheless, really unique comic book, and that kind of brought us to to the 2000s with at least WWF Comics, because they've only had the BattleMania and the Chaos Comics that were ever released. We're going to get into the other ones that didn't start until around 2010, because WWE has never really been focused on making comic books. They've more been, we've got a company that wants to do it, like their toy lines. Yeah. We have somebody who wants to do it, we'll give them the license.
Whatever, y'all go do, we have no control over it.
Exactly. But that is going to be in our character spotlight when we get through it. That is all of our new comics of the week. I believe it's time for us to talk about our new purchases of the week.
Yes.
And normally it's figure purchases, which I will be talking about here in a second, as you can see. But we also have a very, very special purchase by Mr. Michael Stanley of Cosplay in Tampa Bay, which will help each and every one of you trying to get into cosplay out a little bit better.
Yeah, it definitely will. So first time I ran into him was a couple years at MegCon. It's LucaJackets.com. You can see a couple of them on the wall. The first one, my Batman one, is the one I picked up at MegaCon. My Venom one from them I picked up last year at New York Comic Con. Because it was cold, I needed a new jacket, and they were there. And recently, I picked up, because I'm working...
it already fell.
Of course it fell. I'm working on a Red Hood cosplay, so they made some awesome compression shirts for it.
Now, to get a fully accurate Red Hood cosplay there, Michael, we can go out back, and I beat you with a crowbar for 45 minutes. and we'll call it a day.
Do we have the photos?
Yes, we do. We still have, there's the website you can go to, which is lucajacket.com, and they have, there you see one of the Riverdale jackets. There's Diva, there's Red Hood. I believe we actually have some other photos as well to showcase some of these particular jackets off. And once again, you said you found them at MegaCon?
Yeah, so I met Luca at MegaCon. They have a sale with different compression shirts right now. There's me wearing my Venom jacket with Tom Hiddleston.
And Jessica Negri.
Yes.
One of the most famous cosplayers in the world.
But yeah, a lot of cosplayers are picking up these jackets because they make the cosplay 10 times better. Like that one right there of Diva. You have Agent 76. So they do a whole bunch jackets from the video games to comics. They're always working on new licenses to see what they can do next.
Yeah, and that's very interesting. If you're trying to get into the world of cosplay and you want to do a specific character who wears a coat, wears a specific type of shirt, they might have it available on their website. So please go check them out. Let them know Comic Book 101
They have leather jackets. They have vegan leather. So a lot of good stuff there.
Yeah, our producer Rob is even saying very high quality stuff. He's still waiting for the jacket that Papa Tech and you owe him.
I
don't know about it. I'm just making sure my boy Rob gets hooked up.
My Batman jacket ain't going nowhere.
So
John even got a jacket. He got the jacket from Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, but Rob didn't get hooked up. Somebody needs to hook up Rob. He makes everybody here look amazingly fresh. So we need to make him look amazingly fresh as well. So that was his purchase of the week. My purchase of the week ties in with part 1's purchase of the week. I had mentioned before, I am a collector of Triple H's King of Kings action figures specifically. Anytime he has the crown, the skull crown on, where he looks like Shao Kahn, I'm always into it. It's my favorite version of Triple H. I love seeing the different outfits that he's done each and every year. On the table we have his WrestleMania 32, I want to say, when they were in California. I can't remember off the top of my head. When he did the Terminator bit, there is the Terminator Triple H. And this week, I am opening series number 50, Stephanie McMahon. I've officially dubbed this one the Queen of Queens. And yes, she is in the same garb from WrestleMania 32, so that had to be like 33 or 31, one of the two, I can't remember. They all blend together. Nevertheless, she is from Greenwich, Connecticut, 5'9", and has been a women's champion and a Vincent J. McMahon Legacy Award winner, which means nothing. It was just a way for them to get Shane McMahon back on TV. But nevertheless, I'm going to open this bad boy. Let's see. Oh, dear God, did they tape it on?
So while he's doing that, actually today I was playing around on Facebook on a break at work, and I found a video of Hunter's best entrances, and they showed the one where he came out with the throne.
Oh, yeah, from 30?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was actually there for WrestleMania 30 to see that, and yeah, that was an amazing entrance. Now, this particular figure comes with a special behind the scenes little performance center area you can make as a nice little backdrop for your figures if you're doing figure photography. There's half of the weight set. And let's pop out the crown first. And very much like the actual crown she held that particular WrestleMania 32, it's got a little handheld bit so she can hold it on her face like a
masquerade mask.
Yeah, masquerade, eyes wide shut kind of gimmick. And there she goes, popping out.
And this is his date for this weekend as well.
Are you kidding me? I'm married. I have no dates anymore. And what makes this figure amazingly awesome is you can, as soon as I figure out how they did it, put on her entrance jacket as she wore at WrestleMania 32. Yep, this is going to take me a while. You know what? I'll just set it up later. There we go. I'll make sure she gets the mask, though, because we can't have her just like running around without the mask on. There we go. Woo, spookiness. There we go. Stephanie McMahon and Triple H in skull attire. Yep, she's not going to stay. This comes the awkward part of the show where we try to make our action figure stands tall. Yeah. But there we go. There's my Stephanie McMahon.
Some kind of little display for us for these.
Huh?
I gotta come up with a little display.
Yeah, I have a display for them. It's called In My House next to all my other ones.
When we put them here, because they all use usually the same size little peg.
Yes, usually any figures like this is going to be something that I'm going to let you all in on. Whether you're collecting professional wrestling figures or other ones. G.I. Joes. There's a couple websites you can use. RingsideCollectibles.com for wrestling. They have some amazing stands and wrestling figures. Small Joe's has amazing risers for your wrestling figures, your G.I. Joe figures. Heck, I've seen guys use the Small Joe risers for their Hasbro figures that we've seen me talk about. There are a lot of great things there. And then, of course, going to IKEA and getting a Detolf Ziggler, a Detolf, and putting all your figures there, which is a glass case, which all four sides you can see on. That's really amazing.
That's why I need to go buy.
A lot of great ways to do it. And then, of course, Small Joe's and Ringside sell the little stands for your figure collections. Now, we're going to move on, ladies and gentlemen. Enough of the toys. We've got my Stephanie. We've got my Triple H that will get added to my other Triple H and Stephanie McMahon action figures at my house. But we're going to go over to our Cosplayer of the Week. Now, this week, our Cosplayer of the Week is...
It's you this week. I'm letting you have this one. Normally I do it, but because it's a wrestling-themed episode, I gave this one all to Josh.
When we did issue number 1 of our history of pro wrestling comic books, that night we went home and saw this individual. His name is @PunkRunnerEvan on Twitter. And you can go and check out his cosplays there. He was introduced to our show thanks to his good friend Elizabeth, who was on our show. She's usually hanging around in the background when Mark was here.
She's been on Nerd Talk the past couple weeks.
And he said he got into cosplay because him and his wife started going to conventions to meet wrestlers and they met some cosplayers in line, and it seemed like it was a lot of fun. Now, one of his personal favorite cosplays to do was either Ted DiBiase himself, the $1 Million Man, or Little Sweets. I'm not getting my Little Sweets pop. I've already... Back issues, y'all. I'm not getting it. Just to let you know, nobody's getting it. They only had small numbers of them, but nevertheless, I'm pretty sure he got his Little Sweets pop. But why does he like to cosplay? He loves that it's an instant icebreaker and a way to talk to new people. One of his future cosplays, believe it or not, is he wants to do Surfer Sting.
The OG Sting.
With the tights, the jacket.
Hair.
He needs to commission someone to airbrush a Jimmy Hart jacket as well. He's not very good at the airbrushes. Maybe using...
I might know someone that does that.
One of the best ways to do it, and I'll probably hit you up off air as well, Evan, is to use vinyl. The vinyl that's used for cars and certain t-shirts and stuff like that would work really well for something like his jacket or a lot of other wrestlers' jackets, to be honest, if there isn't a lot of detail work in it. For cosplay, works a lot of great wonders, just getting the heat transfer vinyl, putting it right on the jacket itself, and moving on. And once again, you can check him out at PunkRunnerEvan at Twitter, because he doesn't have an Instagram, he doesn't have a Facebook, he's only at Twitter. So thank you, PunkRunnerEvan, for being our Cosplayer of the Week. It feels weird being on this side of the cosplay. You can do it next week, fine.
And if you want to be featured as Cosplayer of the Week, just shoot us a message on our Facebook page. We'll get with you right away. There's always a lot of people, so if it's not this week, it'll be the following week or something. Just message us and be patient, but we'll get back with you right away.
Yes, we will be. And once again, if you want to be a sponsor on our show, or you want to just send us a message, say hi, any type of info at all, just use hello@comicbook101tv.com, or if you're trying to be a sponsor, hit us up at info@comicbook101tv.com. Now, we've gotten through our purchases, we've gotten through our figures, we've gotten through cleaning up the house. I believe there's only one thing left for us to do.
What would that be?
It's time for our Character Spotlight
of the Week!
Now, this week, once again, as we have stated, we are getting back into the world of professional wrestling, and this time, we start off in the year of 2010. Pretty interesting year, the year 2010.
I don't remember that year.
Well, in the year 2010, we happened to get an amazing story that... All right, I'm going to be honest, it wasn't that amazing. It was very unique, to say the least, and it was known as WWE Heroes. It was made by Titan Comics in 2010, and what made this kind of a really unique story is where we talked about the BattleMania and the Chaos Comics single issue runs of like Rock Austin, China and stuff, where those kind of followed the backstage antics of the wrestlers and like what went on behind the scenes. This story is unique as it tells an all-new story that ties into Cain and Abel somehow, some way. This Shadow King that is obsessed with finding this supernatural war in his brother or whatever it is. It looks like Triple H, but he isn't Triple H. The first issue was released in April of 2010 with a continuing storyline called Rise of the Firstborn, and this thing would have The Undertaker in it, John Cena, and it went all the way until, for a good long run, until a few of the issues, once again, like any other comic book, it has its shelf life, it has its run date, but with something like this, and because of how unique the storyline was, a lot of people weren't really jumping into this particular story, so they eventually got to a point where the WWE Hero story ended, and they continued it on in Timequake, WWE Heroes Timequake, which was a two-part story that had The Undertaker in it, and then at the end of that, there was a teaser for John Cena Gladiator, which never came to be. It never came to fruition, and I'm pretty sure you never heard of the WWE Heroes magazine comic book either, because once again, this came out in 2010. This was at the end of the...
Was that the same time they were... I remember one point in period they were like throwing them up on Raw during commercials where you could go to there, get Undertaker, Kane, Mankind comic.
That was actually the Chaos Comics that we were talking about. These were a lot different because this was a lot further down on the timeline, because this is around Ruthless Aggression time area, because John Cena's in these books and stuff like that. It's always a good telltale sign of when that era starts is John Cena. Once you start seeing John Cena around in matches, that's kind of where it is. It also was
but you
around...
never see John Cena. That's the thing.
You did. He was the fourth member of the NWO, didn't you know? We learned that at WrestleMania this year.
That was awesome.
But the same time period, WWE Kids magazine started coming out as well, and they were going to test the waters with a standalone Hardy Boys comic that would be one panel, every issue of the WWE Kids magazine would contain one-page comic of the Hardy Boys in space. Hardy Boys, doing all of these different things.
Jeff Hardy's Swanton Bomb off the moon to Earth.
Yes, pretty much. And unfortunately, they made it as far as to be inked, not full-on inked and colored, but inked to the... They've been traced and stuff like that.
A tracer.
A tracer definitely went through it, an inker, and went through the lines. All the bubbles are there, and you can see them online. The same site that I saw the Crazer comic had the Hardy Boys comic up there as well. But they decided against putting these Hardy Boys comics in the WWE Kids magazine for one reason or another. It wasn't fully ever explained. But as we were just saying, the WWE Heroes comic book, that lasted from 2010 to 2013, because in 2013, another comic book company would come out, and they would purchase the rights for the WWE comic books. And what made this series way more interesting and way more of something that I kind of want to read, it was called WWE Superstars, and it was written by the one, the only hardcore legend himself, the New York Times best-selling author, multiple times over, Mick Foley himself, wrote this series. And what was unique about this series was not only did it involve professional wrestlers of this day and age, but wrestlers of the past as well. Like, one of the big overall story arcs is this comic went for 12 issues. From 1 to 4 was one story arc, 5 to 8 was another, and then 9 to 12 was the last story arc. The first one was all about being at Money in the Bank. In Titan City, a metropolis where everyone is hiding secrets, there's no one to trust. And in a corrupt world where everyone is looking to cash in, we'll follow the journey of 3 men. John Cena, Randy Orton, and the voice of the voiceless, Mr. CM Punk, who would go on to write Thor comic books when his WWE career would end. So that's another unique take on it.
Who better else to write a comic book than an actual wrestler?
Yes, I very much agree
about that.
I very much agree, and
so
especially
you're actually getting a wrestler's point of view how it should be.
Well, even then, with the story that Mick wanted to tell, they gave him complete and utter reign on it. And once again, to the point of the main storyline, when it comes down to an end, issues through 9 and 12, because all this combines into one larger story arc. The last story, known as Legends, the owner and the person calling the shots and running WWE is the Brain, Bobby the Brain Heenan's brain. Literally, the Brain's brain is calling the shots. And you've got Hot Rod Roddy Piper, you've got Andre the Giant, Hulk Hogan. There is literally a point in this comic book when let's be real, in professional wrestling, there are two men who've been considered the supermen of the sport, Hulk Hogan and John Cena. What happens if you take the two of them and combine them as one? Yeah, very scary thing. We find out in WWE Superstars the amalgam of John Cena.
I could go with so many jokes right now, but I'm not going to.
Yes, they do have a half of a Fu Manchu mustache. Really out there kind of stuff. But once again, we're talking about the realm of comic books. And if you were to take the world of professional wrestling, which is already basically a comic book, and add on top of more story elements and really go out there with time travel and some of the things you can do with a comic book, it created something very unique like WWE Superstars. And at the same time that these books were coming out, they were actually being distributed by a little-known company. Sorry, trying to go through my notes here. By Papercutz. Super Genius / Papercutz were the distributor of this comic book series, and they wouldn't just do the WWE Legends series, they would do another series as well. Do you know about Slam City?
Yeah.
So I happen to love me some WWE Slam City. I own a WWE Slam City CM Punk because he has an ice cream cart. Yeah, the only time we ever got the ice cream bars till modern era, because those ice cream sandwiches are very, very close. Thank you, Good Humor. That's a whole nother story. But WWE Slam City was a very unique cartoon because it's still available on WWE Network today and on YouTube. And this actually follows the life of the WWE wrestlers outside of the ring. WWE is pretty much shut down, which never happens, even in the quarantine coronavirus-plagued universe that we live in. WWE still runs strong, but in Slam City, the finisher, the guy who's now calling the shots, the guy on the left, believe it or not, in the background, he is the main diabolical villain of the series. He's trying to capture the WWE Championship for his own means. He has Vince McMahon locked in a vault somewhere.
Good place to keep Vince at.
Yeah, a little bit. And it's a very unique story. And then the second one has El Diablo into it, which was somewhere they were going to go with another season of Slam City, which never saw the light of day. They made the toys, they made the first series, and then they made these comic books. Once again, very unique and way more for the little kids. Like a lot of these books that we've been talking about, as you've heard, there's over-the-top violence, there's over-the-top storytelling and themes. And with WWE Slam City, it's a lot more easier to give your kids this type of comic book.
So is that when they start going to the PG-13 element on TV?
This was already well before that.
Okay, so we're not even on that part in TV-wise while they're doing it.
Yeah, even
okay.
like
I figured this was going on
then,
during the same time.
No, because the parental side has already been going on for quite some time, but they were also doing the WWE Superstars book, which, as we've heard, has biblical stuff in it. It has this Shadow Demon King and stuff like that. Not Finn Balor. Looks like Triple H, but not Triple H. That was that kind of story, and then simultaneously at the same time you could pick up
kids one.
They did a kids one as well, because like WWE at the time, to me, into the Ruthless Aggression era at some point, shortly after John Cena winning the title and we get the spinner belt is where we start heading into the PG era more so. And even then, you still had some more riskier storylines and stuff, but they were documenting and programming toward kids a little bit more for obvious reasons. Like, look, I was a little kid when I got into pro wrestling, and some of the things that I absolutely loved about pro wrestling is not necessarily things I want my daughter seeing in today's day and age. Doesn't mean, you know, you can't show them when they get a little bit older.
Puppies all the time.
Yeah, like there's a lot of different things with it. But WWE Slam City, very great for your little kids. Heck, if you're wanting to watch something that expands on some pro wrestling stuff that, you know, is in a different realm than what you would see on Monday Night Raw, SmackDown, an entirely animated universe, WWE Slam City, I would stay away from showing your little ones Camp WWE, one of my all-time favorite shows.
That's a great show, but that's not for kids.
But not for kids. WWE Slam City is where it's at.
Or if you could find the old wrestling cartoon from the 80s.
Yes, you can definitely find Hulk Hogan's Rockin' Wrestling Connection. I'm not a big fan of that one myself, but I don't like Hulk Hogan, so that's neither here nor there. But we would actually get into another comic book in the year 2016 by El Rey Network and Chido Comics, which was known as the Lucha Underground comic series. These were 4 separate comic books released online featuring Rey Mysterio, Penta El Zero, Mil Mascaras, so many great talents and characters that were in this storyline or in these books. But you know what makes these books, these particular comics, better than any of the ones we've talked about in our part 1 or this part 2?
Focus more on wrestling itself?
No, they actually focused on continuity, because these Lucha Underground comics take place in continuity to the Lucha Underground TV show that was on the El Rey Network. So if you were a fan of it, like I was a fan of it, it was more of a Mexican novella, you know, Mexican soap opera.
The stories for them were a lot bigger. They thrived, I guess.
Even the backstage shots, like where they would normally show a guy doing an interview backstage or getting into a fight backstage, was way more cinematic. Like yes, it was Robert Rodriguez whose network who made it and stuff, and everything was way more cinematic to it, to the point where when they got between seasons 1 and 2, they decided to make this comic book series to tie in. How do you get Rey Mysterio in Lucha Underground? This comic book series actually explains all of that.
It's like the Arrowverse when they did 2.5 to tie in a TV
Exactly,
show. Or
like in our comic of the spotlight of last week, Middleman, that we talked about, where all the comics and all the TV shows, any media that has been released of it, all ties in together. Same with Lucha Underground, and the company that makes this comic, Chido Comics, they don't just make Lucha Underground comics. Like, yeah, they did those 4 comics, which are absolutely free online. You can head over there today at ChidoComics.com/news/
You had me at the best
Lucha
word.
Underground.
Free.
Yes, all of these
Free
comics
is the
are
best
absolutely
word.
free. But if you head to ChidoComics.com, not only can you get these, but they have other comics as well that deal with professional wrestlers, like Penta El Zero and Phoenix.
So are these all in English then?
Yes, they are all in English. This is an American company producing these comic books. They have tons of Lucha Libre stars, past, present, future, all showcased in comic book form in a few different books on their site. I highly recommend them, because around this time period, because now we're in modern times of pro wrestling comic books, Roddy Piper has a comic book. Jerry Lawler has his own comic book. Comic books now in professional wrestling, heck, everybody's doing them for the most part.
Becky Lynch.
Yeah, but even then, their comics come a little bit differently. I'm just talking about if you were a legend of the past, you can now have a comic book made of you, because all you need is an independent artist, an independent writer, and work together. That's what Rowdy Piper did. That's what Ultimate Warrior did. That's what so many different people have done, and it's worked for them. You know, because nowadays, literally, Vampiro probably has a comic. Like, I can't even fathomably think of how, because at this point, it's anybody can. Ric Flair has a comic book. Which brings us to where WWE Comics sit in today, which is with WWE's Boom Studios. The wonderful makers of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. They make these wonderful comics as well. And what makes Boom Studios so amazing...
The artwork in this, I've seen it at the comic shop, is amazing.
Yes. And not only is the artwork amazing, but all of the storylines in these books are actual continuations of the storylines you would see on TV.
Coming back up, the Ric Flair one right there.
That one is the Then Now Forever line, and that particular book talks about Ric Flair all the way back when he was on his come-up and gaining the world's heavyweight title. They have the breaking up of the Shield. And once again, all these stories that they tell in these books is not what you would see on TV. Yeah. It's a continuation of what you would see on TV. While they may not be an official storyline continuation, it is a little bit of a more in-depth look at times. They show the New Day and how they came together. And one of the more recent ones is the Sammy and Kevin show, trade paperback, which if you know, I know, Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens, better known as El Generico and Kevin Steen from their Ring of Honor days, have been to war for years and years and years. This story tells the Sammy and Kevin story.
Their version of that one.
But the WWE version. There will be no mentions of El Generico. There will be no mentions of Kevin Steen. It's just Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn as they stand today in WWE Comics. Or in WWE TV, and it's telling once again that backstory of they were close friends, then they became bitter enemies. Same with the Shield one, showing the Shield breaking up. Talks about like when the members of the Shield went to their hotel room after winning the WWE title, what they went and did, how they reflected back upon it. Really unique stories for a really unique world of comic books that we sit in, especially with professional wrestling comics. They're based off of the guys and based off of the stories, but all new continuing stories so that you don't necessarily have to jump in at issue 1. One of the books I read was the one that we shown of The Undertaker, and it showed The Undertaker as a normal man. And he never had the magical powers. Once again, Paul Bearer is eviler than evil because he's pitting Undertaker and Kane against each other and stuff like that, and shows the mortuary burning down, everything that you would expect out of an Undertaker, story when it's based off of the gimmick and the character and kayfabe.
More based on who he really is right now.
As a person, not like, I can shoot out lightning and all this stuff.
Undertaker / Mark.
Yeah, like it's literally he's a dude, and it was a unique story. I didn't like what they did with Paul Bearer myself, but I thought it was unique in the sense of they're tying the story of The Undertaker and from the time he debuted with Ted DiBiase, which they don't mention Brother Love, but the time he debuted with Ted DiBiase,
no love for Brother Love.
all the way to modern day, pretty much, and even then, it kind of ends with Undertaker going to Kane, or Kane going to The Undertaker and being like, hey, we need to kind of team up again and go to Saudi Arabia and fight DX because we all need paychecks. But yeah, so like I said, the WWE Boom Studios.
You mentioned Undertaker one. Do they go back in that beginning and mention Undertaker's first name was actually Kane the Undertaker?
No, they do not.
They don't ignore that part.
That part.
They erased that from their history as well.
Even then, that's it. Because you have Kane and then you have the Undertaker, which is a whole nother thing. If you don't listen to the Something to Wrestle With podcast hosted by Bruce Pritchard, I highly recommend it. We don't really talk about other people's media on here, but if you're into pro wrestling and you want to hear stories from the right hand of Vince McMahon himself, the Bruce Pritchard podcast, Something to Wrestle With, is definitely one of the best. But I believe that is the end of our character spotlight this week. We've gotten through it. I'm highly impressed with ourselves.
We got time left. So you always say you were a wrestler.
I work in professional wrestling.
Where is all this proof? Come on.
You really want proof?
Yes, I want to see proof of this.
Now, I'm going to warn you, the way I am on this show and who I am in the world of professional wrestling are two entirely different entities.
No, the princess is a princess.
This is just the vessel that hosts my other side, if you will. Tell you what, why don't we just go to the beautiful footage?
Do we have fun? That was quite interesting. So I know a lot of fans have always been asking, what is that blue case back there?
Yeah, so we actually have a little bit of time. So we're going to do it this time, this week. It's actually...
Oh, Stephanie fell.
Oh, it's all right. We're going to the case this week because we have enough time. We're going to see what is in the case this week. We've been teasing it for weeks and weeks and weeks. Every time we've had some time left over, we're going to go into this bad boy and see what magical item we can pull out. And this week, and for the first time ever, we have out of the case, which I won at the Fast Pass Rumble at Brawl USA because I'm awesome, as we all just saw in, you know, my insanity.
I see what it is.
We have WCW trading cards from 1991. I've got 3 packs. You have 3 packs. Let's open these bad boys live on air. What do you say? And there we go, right off the bat.
I remember having these when they
Surfer
first came out.
Sting.
Terry Taylor.
We can go there. That's, you know.
Taylor don't matter.
Teddy Long player.
Oh, my favorite.
El Gigante?
No.
Oh, Mr. Wall Street. Bad Street, USA, Fabulous Freebirds.
Lex.
Dutch Mantel.
Steiner.
Arn Anderson.
Another version of Sting.
Doom. Well, we're going to continue to open
Blair,
these cards, ladies
Southern.
and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us this week on Comic Book 101 TV.
We still have
I am
time.
the wonderful, beautiful, prettiful host, the Princess of Weird, Josh Johnson.
I'm Michael Stanley, cosplaying Tampa Bay. You need any photos, shoots, cosplay, anything, hit me up. I'm definitely...
If you're trying to do a cosplay as El Gigante, he can hook you up. Please join us each and every week. He was better known as the Giant Gonzalez in WWE.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you for joining us. Please hit us up. hello@comicbook101tv.com. That has been it for us.
Arn
We'll
Anderson.
see you next week.